what we're going to do right now is light our Advent altar or wreath, and so just let me just set it up a little bit. So we're going to have Janet light the wreath today because this is her altar, and I'm going to tell you. I know. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about the altar, but that was the altar for our Green Man celebration of solstice last night. So we wanted you all to see it, those of you that couldn't make it to solstice. So the Advent wreath is actually older than Christianity. It's one of those customs that Christianity said, well, we can do that too. But the way that we do this is that for each Sunday before Christmas, we give thanks for the return of the sun that will surely happen. And actually, the moment of the solstice is today at 3:03 p.m. So technically, we are still going into the darkening time until 3:03. And so what we have done and what we will summarize by our song today is we bless the earth as she waits for the return of the sun. We bless the plants as they wait for the return of the sun. We then bless the animals, and today we bless the people. 4 candles. So I'm going to ask Janet to come forward, and we're going to light 4 candles and sing 4 verses, and they'll be right up here for you. We light a candle in the dark to greet the newborn sun. The earth turns upon its axis, a new year is begun. A new year is begun. We light 2 candles in the dark to greet the newborn sun. Blossoms reaching to the light, winter's cold is done. Winter's cold is done. We light 3 candles in the dark to greet the newborn sun. Furry beings out from hiding, sleep will soon be done. Sleep will soon be done. We light 4 candles in the dark to greet the newborn sun. People face the light and praise the angle of the sun. The angle of the sun. A new year is begun. Isn't that just so satisfying and beautiful? Yeah. I think I'll tell you this now. I was going to wait for announcements when we thank everybody for the solstice, but I want to share this compliment with Bodhi as well. Many wonderful things were said to us about the solstice celebration last night, but my favorite was Reverend Mary told me on the drive down here this morning. She said that a woman that neither one of us know went up to her and asked for the entire PowerPoint presentation to be sent to her because she thought she could follow along and tell the story to her 10-year-old granddaughter. With all the songs and everything, it's like it made so much sense to her to see this time of year as absolutely holy. And the carols that we sang with their earthy words just made so much sense and felt so nourishing that she wanted to tell the story to her 10-year-old. So thank you, my partner. Okay, we're still not much sleep and a lot of feeling. So So we are in the last month of the year, obviously. The theme is You Are Eternal, and the last quote of the essay by Ernest Holmes is what we are studying this month. The entire essay, for those of you that are here for the Christmas holidays and haven't been with us for this year, is right over there on that stand. The entire essay is what we have been working with all year long, and this is the quote for today. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that the life of all is God. So what we're saying is that literally is it. The life of all is God. In the realm of eternity, in the realm of time and space, in any other dimension, you know, the 5% of matter and the 95% of antimatter, it's all God. And so the altar, I want to talk about the altar for a little bit because we celebrated the green man. And the green man, through antiquity, is that humanoid form that our ancestors saw in the forest, the eyes through the leaves, and personified everything as a way of saying it is all holy. It is all a part of the one. And so we celebrated the green man last night, and this is, to me, it's about the blessings of the earthly form. And that's our word, it's my turn to do this here. Well, I'm a little off. That's the title. We'll get back to the blessing word. Anyway, keep up with me here. So this altar is homage to the life in the land and the life in the plants and in this beautiful blue-green planet on which we live. And so that's the green man. And then this morning, Christine Geiger brought in one of those red mushrooms. Now, I have seen pictures of these red mushrooms in Europe, but I didn't know that they grew here, so do not eat them. Do not eat them, but these are hallucinogenic mushrooms that, I mean, unless you want to trip out, I'm not responsible. So these appear at this time of year, and Christine has them all over the hillside behind her house. And these little red mushrooms with the white dots on them are the reason that Santa Claus has a red hat with a white tassel. That's them. That's the little mushrooms. So we just celebrate the whole natural world and see God in it. And so back to today, the title of my talk is Breaking into Time and Space. And so we are continuing with where we left off last Sunday. And for those of you that weren't here last Sunday, I concluded with what is called an angel walk in a workshop. And in a workshop, when you have an angel walk, you have 2 rows of people, and you send one person at a time down this column, and the people whisper blessings, blessings, blessings as the person travels through the angel walk. And I suggested that that is what we all go through as we come to earth. That we are eternal beings, and we metaphorically pack our bags in heaven with all of our skills and all of our talents and all of our lessons and all of those connections that we're going to make on earth, and then excitedly we head for earth, and on the way to earth the angels whisper blessings, and so that is the word, blessing. So that's the idea, that we are eternal beings, and we were sent, we volunteered, we chose, no accidents, we showed up in time and space exactly on time. And so this is the image that I hope this little man is by the altar, but I'm sure you've seen this in people, and actually we had one talk. It is a seeker breaking through the earthly realm, which is the earthly realm of plants and have all possibility, and we come into this realm of very distinct things, but we bring in the eternal qualities of God, those qualities of love and peace and joy and connection and harmony and balance. And all of those are available to us at any moment. And so we come into this realm and we pretend, we play pretend. We pretend that there is separation. We pretend that there are dangers. We pretend that there are sadness and agonies because they feel so real. But it's actually, all of that is pretend stuff. So each person is the intersection of the eternal and the local. And actually, that is the picture of the original cross. The cross that has 4 equal arms surrounded by a circle is a very ancient symbol. It's much older than the Roman cross with the longer stand on it. But the Celtic cross, the Native American hoop with the cross in it, is equal armed cross with a circle around it, meaning everything. And the up and down line is eternity. And the crossbar is like the horizon. This is the local. And here we stand in the middle of the eternal and the local. So that is who all of us is. And actually, that is who, that special person that we celebrate at this time of year, that's him too. That Jesus, the eternal, moving into the local. So we have this special individual that we celebrate this time of year, but what I want to do today is talk about how that special individual informs us about ourselves. Because, you know, he said that he was like us. He said, we're all sons and daughters of God right now. That's what he said. So let's look at this for a little bit because, as I said, 2 Sundays at least every single year are devoted to Jesus. And you can imagine which ones they are, and this is one. So the birth of Jesus was foretold over 400 years before he showed up. And we have this as a part of the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament. Isaiah 7:14 says, "Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." And a little bit further on in Isaiah, in 9:6, it says, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." So this happened 400 years about before Jesus showed up. And so what this statement was in Isaiah, I believe, is a longing of an oppressed people for a Savior. Not the kind of salvation that we hear today, but the Jews at that time were oppressed, and as it says, the government shall be upon his shoulder. So they wanted a spiritual leader that was also a political leader. A spiritual leader and a political leader together. That's what they wanted. Also, in this time, before and during the time that Jesus appeared, the religions of the Gentiles were saturated with mystery. Now, in the Bible, it talks about the Jews and the Gentiles. So we know who the Jews were. The Gentiles were the pagans. The Gentiles were the ones that believed in the Roman pantheon and the Greek pantheon. So we have the Jews and the Gentiles had a extremely satisfying and complex religion that had been going on for eons. And I'm reading from this book, God's Seed, by Jean Houston, and she says, "In addition to being perceived as the historical fulfillment of Judaism, Jesus also met the requirements of the mystery religions. He was a man-God who died for his people." So the mystery religions had to do with Isis, Osiris, Inanna, Demeter, Persephone. those gods and goddesses of the ancient pantheons. She goes on to say, many of you reading or listening to this book would have been involved in mystery rites. If you had lived 2,000 years ago, such rites included sophisticated symbolic studies, psychological purification, and psycho-spiritual practices, as well as the physical enactment of ritual drama in which the initiate joined the god in his or her passion and death, and then resurrected with the god into a new self and a higher meaning. And so we have what we know of some of those religions, like the Eleusinian mysteries, which were Greek. They went on for over 2,000 years, and it involved a pilgrimage. People walked to this town called Eleusis, and then they did ritual purification, and then something happened on the last night that is inexplicable. At least no one has ever spoken about it, and it is assumed because you can't explain it. But they could have ingested something, they could have gone into a ritual trance where somehow they died and were reborn with Demeter, and they never, ever, ever again feared death. And so these were the mystery religions that were going on at the time that Jesus appeared on the scene, and as he lived his life and died, and then as the story evolved in the next many, many years, the resurrection, he became the real person who had died and was resurrected, that fulfilled not only the Jewish political longing, but the mystery traditions as well. You following me here? Isn't this exciting? I love this. So, he was actually, as he lived, one of the many holy men in the desert that were calling themselves the Messiah. And so this very interesting one man, Jesus of Nazareth, sort of evolved through history to be the focal point of God's message on earth. And it could have been any of them, and I bet that the message would have been the same. I bet anything that survived 2,000 years would have taught love and peace and forgiveness. But this is the teacher that has taught us how to live well. And not to minimize the majesty of Jesus, but just that there was that prophecy, and someone was called forth, and that someone took up the story, and the story has lasted this long. And the message of the story is love and peace and forgiveness. And so we retell this story this time of year because it is so precious to us. And the beginning of it, the beginning which probably never happened exactly that way because, well, there's just all kinds of reasons that the manger business probably didn't exactly happen that way. But nonetheless, the story as it lives in us encourages us to live the peace and the love and the forgiveness that this majestic teacher taught. So now, I would like to ask you, how are you just like Jesus? Because this is the real meaning of the story. It's not that he is the great exception. He is the great example. And so, as he said, we can do greater things. We are just like him. So what if the time that you broke into time and space was the perfect moment for you and your family and perhaps even all of history? That just like that prophecy 400 years before Jesus, and then Jesus shows up, that you too were called in for a very, very important purpose. For example, you could be the one, and I know of people in this community who have broken the cycle of alcoholism in their families that had lasted for generations. I know people in this community who have broken the cycle of severe child punishment that lived in their family, and they came in and they broke that cycle. So can you see that those generations before you might have longed for you? They did long for you. Generations. And perhaps even said, who is it that will save this family from poverty? Who is it that will save this family from abusive relationships? Who is it that will save this family from despair and betrayal? And then you came. The consciousness of need created a pathway for you and called your soul into being. And so I want you to think that I believe this is true. So I want you to imagine for a moment that it is true. And the question is, how is it true for you? How is it true that you are the perfect person to come into the slot in your family, to heal, to love, to bring peace, that you are the perfect person with all of your gifts from eternity, all the love and the peace that you bring, all of those qualities that are your special brand of that? How is it that you came in at the perfect time? And then we get to ask an even, equally interesting question, and that is, who are we calling in right now? Who are we saying we long for a wise ruler or a wise leader that will show us peace in the Middle East? We long for a wise scientist and people who will vote for a new way of doing energy. We long for a banking system that is moral. And who is it that we're going to call in that will be the healing? Because if we don't call them in, that pathway of need might not open up. And so for every misery that we have in this earthly realm, there is a healing. And there is a wise and loving person that is either incarnated now or will be incarnated that can heal it. We must believe that. I believe that. So I'm also thinking of you that are here for the first time or with your families, and you're thinking, what in the world are my loved ones up to? So, or some people who are hurting, and this message so far has not addressed your hurt. So I want to back up and say a little bit about our very, very basic teaching and how this fits exactly in. What we teach is oneness and mastery. We believe that all life is God's life, and that we work together in God's economy. Now let me explain to you what I mean by God's economy. God's economy is that you have one situation like a Thanksgiving dinner. You have a Thanksgiving dinner with 12 family members around the table, and every single family member is having their own experience, and if they're paying attention, they have their own lessons and they have their own fulfillment right around that same table with the same conversations going. And you know it, you've been at those tables. You've been at one table where somebody's drunk and somebody else is telling a raucous joke and somebody else is sad and somebody else is happy about something else that's going on in their life, and they're not even present mentally. And you have all of these people around the table having their own experience and learning their own lessons, and that is God's economy. That God can put all of that together and be so efficient with everyone's lessons. So, in God's economy, we are all one, and we all create pathways for each other to find the fulfillment of our destiny. Because remember that quote that we're working on today is, we believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny. Now that doesn't mean that we have a preordained path, but I think that it might mean that we have a mission, that as we pack our bags in the realm of eternity and we come into this realm with certain skills and talents, that we want to use those skills and talents for good. And so as we make all of these connections with all of our beloveds on this earthly plane, somewhere we will have the call to our soul to give the gifts that we came in to give. That's what I think that means. So in the oneness of all that is, we are called to give our special gift. That's for the good of all and the good of our soul. Then the only other lesson that we really deal with here is mastery, and that is to love the life that you have created, or to create the life that you love. And this has to do with managing our beliefs, because it is done unto you as you believe. And so I want you today, and I say this to myself as well, to try on the belief that there are no accidents, that you are here at the perfect time for giving your gifts. There are no accidents, and you can just try that on. All the accidents that you think happened, nope, no accidents. They all were setting up for someone to give their gifts. And we can believe that we're just like Jesus. We can believe that. We can believe that the miracles that were talked about and the miracles that were never recorded, the miracles by every avatar on the planet, that's possible for us too. And we can actually believe that our life is perfect and we have nothing to complain about. That would change everything. If we just had no more complaints about anything, but if something displeased us, we said, well, I wonder what it is that is being called forth from me. I wonder what path of healing is opening up for me now. And so if there are some of us today in pain or in loneliness or in sadness, is there a part of you that can accept that this is a part of your great work? Working through this is a part of your great work. And if you need some help with how to see that, we have these beautiful, beautiful practitioners here that are ready to pray with you, and we have classes that are coming up that you might find your own answers. So my son came in this week, and he flew in on an evening on JetBlue. And JetBlue into San Francisco is in the international terminal. And he came in a little after 10 o'clock at night. And the pickup place for the international terminal is very long. And it was raining, and we had texted, so I knew he was getting his bag. And so I pulled up to the curb, and I saw those little traffic guards coming towards me. And they said, move along, move along. And so very slowly, there was no one there, right? I did pull out from behind the only other one car that was there. And I went very slowly because I knew Michael was just getting his bag, so slowly that they walked behind my car. So eventually at door number 3, where there was a long place of empty curb, I pulled over because I had just gotten a text that Michael said he was at door number 1. So I pulled up at door number 3, and they came up, knocked on my window. I rolled it down, and they said, you'll have to move on. I said, my person is at door number 1. And they go, have you seen him? And they were looking. And I said, no, but he just texted me, he's at door number 1. Then they actually said, what is he wearing? And I said, I haven't seen him yet. They didn't get the humor of that. I mean, like, that was a question that you'd ask, you know. How do you recognize that person? So it was so startling to me that they would actually ask me this, that whenever anything like that happens, I go, what's the point? What is the actual point here? You know, what is it that I can see? And what I got was, we don't see the importance of many things in our life. We just don't see them. We don't see what they're wearing. We don't see that they're behind us at door number 1. We just don't see it. And so then we assume that something might be wrong. And so what I'm asking us all to do this morning is to know that even if we can't see it, that there is a blessing in every single aspect to our lives. And that if at first it looks like a problem or a disturbance, that it is really the call for the fulfillment, and that we might be the fulfillment, and that we at the very least are being called to spiritual perfection. And so for me, that's the basic lesson of Christmas. And I wish us all a deeply satisfying Christmas. Thank you. That is so great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So here's your takeaway, darlings. Life is perfect, and I have no complaints. So if you would join with me, please, in the inner realm. And actually follow that little monk as he broke into the realm of eternity from the realm of form and space and time. And imagine that it's just a little veil, and you can just make a little parting motion with your hands and stick your head into the eternal realm. And then imagine that there might have been a prophecy for you. There might have been a call that went out through all of the realms of eternity, that we need a person to show up right here and right now for a very specific job, a great work. And you were called. You were called in to this realm of time and space. Now, for some of us, we're pretty clear on what that call was. And for some of us, we might have accomplished some of that call. But because all of us are still here, there is more to do. And so the question this morning is, how am I a promise fulfilled? A promise from the eternal realms to send a special one to do a great work. And how may I fulfill it? Sitting with that question this Christmas time, so deep, so special, so important, so precious, as each of you is. Blessed be.